Determine, verb, formal, verb forms. Determine, determines, determined, determined, determining. 1. Transitive. To discover the facts about something. To calculate something exactly. Synonym. Establish. Determine something. An inquiry was set up to determine the cause of the accident. Determine what, whether, etc. We set out to determine exactly what happened that night. It was determined that she had died of natural causes. Related entries, experiments, and research. 2. Transitive. Determine something. Determine what, whether, etc. To make something happen in a particular way or be of a particular type. Age and experience will be determining factors in our choice of candidate. Upbringing plays an important part in determining a person's character. 3. Transitive. To officially decide and or arrange something. Determine something. A date for the meeting has yet to be determined. Determine that. The court determined that the defendant should pay the legal costs. 4. Transitive. Intransitive. Determine to do something. Determine that. Determine on something. To decide definitely to do something. They determined to start early. Extra examples. Computer models help to determine whether a particular area is likely to flood. It is difficult to determine the exact cause of the illness. It should be possible to determine the extent of the problem. Reproductive success is directly determined by attractiveness to the female. We need a detailed investigation to determine exactly why these cancers are occurring. A decision which would ultimately determine the fate of the project. The debate about whether such attitudes are biologically or culturally determined. An inquiry was set up to determine the cause of the accident. As she walked home, she determined to speak to her boss the next day. At 7 years old, I determined to be a great footballer. Female employment was determined by economic and social factors. From that moment, I determined that it should not happen again. He suggested that alcoholism may be genetically determined. It is not for the police to determine what information should be disclosed. The court determined that the defendant should pay the legal costs. The government determined on the change of policy. The physical capabilities of a plant determine where it can and cannot live. The success of these plants will be determined largely by the number of members who take part. Their responses to these questions could determine the level, quality, and variety of care they received. Upbringing plays an important part in determining a person's character.